Hello, can anybody hear us? Okay, cool. Hello. All right, hello everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and let people just come in for about a minute or two. So if everybody wants to come in, we're at 40 participants already. Wow. Okay, I'm just gonna get started. I just have a little intro, so I'm just gonna say, howdy everybody. My name is Frankie Alamos. It's like the Alamo with the S at the end, and I was born in San Antonio. Yes, I get it. It's a lot of fun. But I'm currently a junior at Texas A&M University, and I am a recent addition to the Texas Rising team. I was initially hired this January as a deputy field organizer. So I was a VDR. I did voter registration on campus, and I did knocking door to door to find new potential voters. And when coronavirus started, it was all around spring break time. We switched over to digital. And for a couple of weeks, I did what the rest of the DFOs on the team did. And I did like text banking, phone banking, and we did outreach digitally. So whenever we couldn't be in person, we did the digital outreach. And I was on that for a while. And then they reached out to me and they said, hey, we need to expand our digital team because it's only 2 people. They only had a 2-people digital team that consisted of Josh and Larissa. They're currently in our other presentation about talking about how to run a digital team. So it's the other 5 members of the digital team, and I'm running the panel talking about how to do social media and sending tweets, because that's primarily what I do. Everybody else, they all do digital, but they all do other parts of digital. But I'm mostly social media, and that's why we have everybody else here, because they all do they're all part of social media as well. So we're going to do a little intro. First off, we're going to start. I'm going to let everybody go around and we're going to say our name, our organization, and how you use social media in your occupation and as well as in your daily life. And I'll go ahead and start with Charlie. Oh, wait, actually start with Sadie. I don't know where Charlie went.
Hey, everybody. My name is Sadie Hernandez. I am born and raised Brownsville, Texas, Cheaper. And I am United We Dreams National Community Content Coordinator, and part of content creation and coordination and project management is running the social media. So I get to run our C3 and C4 Twitter pages and then do support on the rest of our social media. And as far as social media in my personal life, I don't use it. I'm just kidding. I like social media. It's fun. It's a cool place to especially during Corona, to talk to people, see what they're up to, and then get all the latest breaking news from my favorite journalists, learning about new fun stuff in the beauty community and drama there. So yeah, I definitely do like to use social media on my off time, but after working in digital for a while, it's definitely way less than when I was a student.
Okay, awesome. Well, my name is Giselle. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I'm the social media content creator for this panel. So basically, I've been creating content since 2015. So since I was about 15 years old, and I've been able to really make a brand for my name and just work with different brands and really just share things about my life. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here, and I use it. Of course, it's everything for me because social media is a platform that we use to get the message out there for anything that we might be sharing or any brands we're working with. And as for my personal life, honestly, because I use social media so much and there's not an off button for being a content creator, when it comes to me personally, I've only used it now to just catch up with family and friends, and also for work-related reasons, because even though I do social media on the side, I also have a job, which I'm a financial representative, but we use it for work as well. But yeah, that's as far as my personal life. But for my content creator side, it's all the time. I use it for everything.
So I don't know where Charlie's at, but I think we're just probably going to continue. He should be joining us again, hopefully. So let's move on to one of the first intro questions as well. The first question is going to be like, how do you define success in digital campaigns or initiatives? Like whenever you're posting things or trying to get things out there, is there always a metric or goal number you're aiming for? Or is it sometimes just like a sense of self-accomplishment? Like, is there always something that you're trying to do in the end?
I can definitely take this one. I think it really depends on the goals that you initially lined up. So for different types of creation, like content creation, there's different types of goals. Like sometimes are you just testing things out and are you looking long term, like people are just continually liking this or people just aren't vibing with it, let's get rid of it. It's not really a lot about numbers. Like, yeah, we'll use numbers. Oh, we want to grow our following an average X amount of people a month, or after this campaign we're hoping to have had X amount of new signups, or this amount of like retweets, but not really a lot of numbers really go into it. I think part of doing digital is like understanding the nature of social media and knowing that like, you know, sometimes you can have really good content, but there was something just not in the lines for you for that to get a lot of engagement. Or sometimes you'll tweet something and like be whatever about it and it'll go viral. So I think first and foremost, understanding that it's a lot of it is about how good or not good the content that you're saying is, but then there's just like all these other factors that are completely out of people's control. To then just think about more of a different type of goals. So our goals are more upon like narrative change and culture change, thinking about like how do we start conversations? Like, yes, this post might have 6,000 likes less than our last post, but it has 200 more comments. And the goal was to get people to start talking about, you know, this thing in the news. So it just really is a situational kind of thing. And then my advice would be never to really get hung up on numbers unless you are in a nonprofit and you have to think about grants and funding for digital, because, you know, people who like to give us money don't necessarily work in our field. So they think that you having 10,000 followers somehow should impact the amount of money they give you. Not always, but always be mindful of that part too. So it's great to have these numbers. But thinking about the overall goal of the movement is not about who has a popular page, but it's about whose content is actually being, you know, the change maker in our communities.
Okay, I definitely agree with all of that, and I think it's the exact same thing. I know my side it's a little bit different because whenever, like, if I'm working with a brand, they don't specifically they obviously want outreach. They want more people to see whatever it is that you're sharing. So that is important. But at the end of the day, they're also looking for the action. So let's say 1 million people saw it, but only like 2 people clicked. It's not necessarily considered successful. Compared to maybe like 100 people saw it and 50 people took action. So I think that's one of the bigger things, if making someone, you know, take action. So that could be either like downloading something, buying something, registering for something. And I think the other thing as well that that I've noticed is also just adding value to someone for whatever it is that you are, you know, the campaign that it is, just adding value, whether it's giving people resources or something that they didn't know before, or giving them knowledge or a tool. So I think that's how I would also define it for my personal. Let's say I want to promote something for my personal campaign, or for me, when compared to a brand campaign, I would say it's the outreach, the action, and adding value. But for me, when it's something personal, it's honestly just if I'm able to impact just one person. And if I'm able to share something that maybe is like really personal, but I learned something from it and I think someone else can learn from my mistake or my experience, if it just impacts that one person, for me, it's honestly successful, and I think it's worth it.
Okay, yeah, that's good to hear. I think it's really interesting because we have like 2 different sides. We have Sadie, who works a lot for United We Dream, and then we have Giselle, who like does work and also does like personal posting. So that's really good to hear that in the in the end, it is the same. It doesn't really matter how popular or how viral it gets. It's just about like building momentum or building action or actually creating something. It's something that you can actually see, and it's not always about the likes and the retweets. It's not always going to be about that. So let's see. My other question, we'll see, Charlie should be back soon, but my other question is, what about etiquette on social media? Is there a litmus test for what you should or shouldn't post or share on social media? Let's start with Giselle on that one.
Okay. For me personally, there is, and that's because I like to keep my content related to, I guess, my brand. And one of my big messages is always like kindness, just always being kind. And that's why for me personally, if there's content that's like very, very negative, or it's not very helpful at all, or it's just like people who are like bullies, like I think that content is just, it has no place as long as there's value to whatever it is you're posting and it's helpful. Even if it's an opinion, like as long as you think you can help somebody, those are things that I stick by. But if it's completely negative and it has like no value whatsoever, I try not to post that or be a part of that.
Okay, and then I'll ask this one. We'll get Charlie next because he's just introduced back to us. He's just joining us again. Let's just get our intro question for you again since you weren't here. I don't know when you dropped off, actually. I'm sorry, but you're back. That's all that matters.
We were doing so good before.
Yeah. Okay, let's just start off with just saying your name, your org, and how you use social media in your occupation and your daily life.
Absolutely. Nice to see all y'all. So sorry my internet cut off the minute we went live, ? I'm Charlie Bonner. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the communications director at Move Texas, nonpartisan nonprofit that focuses on youth civic engagement here in Texas. Obviously, social media is critical to everything that we do to engage young people across the state to get registered and then to turn out to vote, whether that is through online conversations, Instagram live concerts, memes, all that sort of different stuff. And then also I'm active on the Twitter personally because I hate my life. And that is what people do. And how else would I talk to Sadie? I'm really just here to learn from her. Thank you for having me. We can go back to your question.
Okay. So actually we can get you to answer this question as well. It's about etiquette on social media. So is there like a litmus test or anything you should or shouldn't post or share on social media?
I mean, that's a great question. It is 2020. Seems like you can get away with literally anything on Twitter. But I think, it was really important for me personally. I've been involved in politics like basically as long as I've had social media. I've been doing this since like middle school and high school. And so they've always been really connected for me. But I knew when I started doing more national, like presidential politics, that I was like, maybe people don't need to know what I was doing in middle school. Like my commentary on politics at age 14 was like not, maybe what I would say now. So I like deleted an entire account and made a whole new account that was, Charlie Bonner circa 2016 of like, I'm an adult and I know what I'm saying now. So that when all of you try to come for me whenever I do something, that you can only go back far back as 2016. And so I think that was really important for me to try to, you don't need to know what I was up to in middle school. It was no good. And I see that a lot. So, sometimes it's smart to we know that like the best form of social media is really personal. That's what's coming from your personal accounts and what you're seeing on the ground, especially as organizers. But that does put a burden on you as to what you're able to put out. So, keep your OnlyFans on a different Twitter account. That's like private, that's like none of your business. You don't need to connect that with your organizing unless that's what you're up to. And, just keeping that kind of like shit posting, like all those sorts of things that we like love to do on social media, maybe not necessarily from your like main accounts and things like that. I will also say private accounts are not private. This is politics. Like people will come from you. So, do not rely on the fact that you have like a private account to like keep you protected from, either like talking shit on the internet or like posting shit on the internet. It's all out there, and you should assume to some degree in politics, it will like, yeah, RIP my fence stub. True. I don't have one for that reason. But yeah, just something to think about.
And then what about you, Sadie? Because I think like a lot of times you share a lot of really good content from United We Dream, and it's so unique, like the things that you share. It's great, honestly. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, okay, so if you're running an organizational page, I think it's definitely a conversation to have with your organization. Who is our audience? Who are we trying to reach? Like, you know, sometimes we play around with trying to get into the pop culture thing, but you also still want to be a voice for whatever organizing you're doing. So, like, we still want, you know, the politicians that follow us and all those people to know, like, hey, we're young immigrants. What you did was fucked up. But also, we also, like, want to be a space for young immigrants to just talk about stuff that they like. So, like, the other day I just was joking around and was like, where are undocumented directioners? Happy 10 years of One Direction. So it's just like kind of like a mix, but obviously I'm not going to be out here like, you know, we joke around maybe at work like, oh, Stephen Miller looks like, you know, one of the fish on SpongeBob, but like I can't post that really on our Twitter. But as far as personal too, I think it's also really about your audience. Like, you know, how I might say something on Twitter might not be the same as Facebook. We all have an issue. But just like Charlie said, just because you said it on Twitter doesn't mean that someone on Facebook isn't going to find it or can't find it. And then I think my last, or actually no, I have two more things. One is that as an elder, retired person, I think a lot of fun, it's like fun to get caught up in the drama and like whatever's going on. But like sometimes it's okay to just like not talk about that person in class who pissed you off, because then you see them a couple years later working for your like legislator and they're still beefing and you forgot who they are. That's happened to me sometimes where you like retweet someone and you're like, oh, this person is XYZ. But yeah, I think that's also like kind of like, do I really like, if it's like, you know, president of the Young Republicans, like go off. But if it's like thinking about trying to bring people into our movement, like who do we use those tactics for? Is it going to be this random person who obviously might not know what she's talking about and maybe that's not the right approach? Or is it this like Turning Point USA guy that's, you know, a waste of my time? So thinking about like where you do that. And then my last thing for everyone is thinking about security. If you are organizing and your personal social medias are about your organizing, you know, like think about what you want to put out there. Make sure you're not on those doxing websites. You can go in and request your information to be removed. You may not always want to put your last name on social media. If you're out doing comms and stuff, then, I mean, your last name is fine. But also, like, you know, don't be tagging where your locations are at. Don't be like taking pictures of your apartment complex, LOL, Sunday fun day, and then, you know, you live in a small town, like, you know, maybe you go to Texas A&M. So just thinking about that kind of security too, like, you know, sometimes I'll see something and I'm like, girl, please delete that. But like, yeah, just think about that kind of safety and security too, because you just like don't want that to come back. It's 2020, people got time, so make sure that they can't find that.
Yeah. If I can just build on something that Sadie was saying, I think one of the things that we've been talking a lot about as we're like building out social media guidelines is you have to think about like short-term and long-term goals. You know, that like sometimes it's easy to call out a legislator on whatever bullshit thing that they've done on the day that's like trending on Twitter, but like, were they a bill sponsor for you? You know, like, are they going to like do this other thing? You know, is the pop culture thing that's trending like worth more than your like long-term political goals? And I think sometimes we get really into the, you know, the social media nature that it's like moving so quickly that we forget our long-term goals. And so I think that's definitely something to always think about when we're like organizing on Twitter, that it is a tool of our political outreach in the long run.
Definitely. Okay, so the next question is going to be So we talked about this kind of earlier, but have you noticed social media changing since quarantine started? I mean, I feel like for me, I definitely noticed like people are definitely relying on it more because we can't really go out anymore. So now whenever you just want to say something out loud, you just say it on Twitter because that's the next best thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'll start with. We'll do Charlie since he joined late.
Oh my God. We definitely have, both personally and I think on the Move accounts, would love to hear what's happening at United We Dream too. But I think even more impactful than quarantine has been the Black Lives Matter protest, in which there's been a true awakening of folks to get involved in politics, in civic engagement for the first time, and many of them are doing it on social media. Yes, we know that that can be a performative thing. We know that that can be a very shallow form of activism, but it can also be the first step for a lot of people. That you following the Move account, you making sure that your friends are registered is like a first step for you to get involved, to you becoming a VDR, to you getting other folks registered to vote. So we have to accept that where it is. In the month following the protest, we went from 3,000 to 4,000 followers, a dramatic increase just on Instagram, where people are rapidly sharing information about protest, where people are sharing unlearning posts about different forms of white supremacy, all these different things. We are seeing all of that really happen on Instagram in a way that I've never seen before. So I think that's kind of the unique moment right now.
And I think that also plays a part on Twitter as well, because people are sharing petitions now, and petitions are definitely a useful platform as well, but they're just one part of actually organizing. And I think it's also another stepping stone to people just sharing all these resources and all these petitions, just saying this is what's happening around you and this is how you can help. Just sign this and then pay attention here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I'm gonna ask this one to. Let's do Sadie and Giselle. I'm gonna say. How do you establish a brand voice? Can you maybe tell us some of the process of your own branding, either personally or professionally? We talked about branding earlier, but I just want to see how did that start for you, Giselle? Because I know you as an influencer, you have grown your fan base and you have a lot of people who follow you. And then for Sadie, we have her and her personal account that also, I mean, you do get fame basically off people who are paying attention to what you're doing at United We Dream and your other organizations. Because I mean, we're funny people sometimes. Go ahead, Giselle.
So, oh my gosh, I just blanked out. Hold on. So I think for me, the biggest thing to create a brand when you're on social media, it's creating a personal relationship with the people that you follow. And that could mean, sharing things about your life or things that you're going through or things that you've been through, and that people can relate to that. And that's how people just really start, following you and just want to know more about you. And for me personally, I wrote down my little notes. I think it's 4 things that really create a brand. And one of them, first thing I put down here, is your personality, just what type of vibe you give to people. Maybe people can relate to that and they, might think, they like you and they go ahead and follow you. Personality. The next thing is values, just what type of things you put out there, what you stand for, what you believe in. And again, people resonate with that. And I think that also just creates who you are. That's what a brand means to me, just who you are. The other thing is, again, the energy that you put out there. For me personally, and all my videos and all the things that I post, it's all super colorful. Not today, but usually all my stuff is very colorful. I'm very bubbly and giggly. I laugh at everything. And the other thing as well is your interests. So that could just mean your hobbies, the music you like, and just sharing that with people. So my brand is based on those 4 things. And I guess that's how I would describe how I built my own brand, just putting that out there with all those 4 things: my personality, what I believe in, the energy, the vibe you give off, and also your interests and the things that you like. That's how I created my brand. And I think that's why a lot of people they see that, because those things can help just build who you are, and as long as people see that they have some sort of connection with you or they can relate with you on something, you'll be able to grow that and use those things to use your brand to just keep growing and keep helping people with that and building those connections with people.
And then I know for Sadie, we were talking about it earlier before the panel started, but I was looking at her stuff online, and she likes to call herself the Mexican Kris Jenner. So, I mean, she's building that brand up for herself. I love the energy, though. It's beautiful. Organizing just the world. Yep. There you go. There you go. Yep.
Well, yeah, I think it's a lot of what Giselle said. People, especially now, are going on the internet to relate to each other. You know, maybe you have like a friend or family member you haven't seen, but you're like, oh, okay, well, obviously they're doing well. Or, oh, look, now they're organizing. What are they talking about? Or, oh, why we're at this protest? I think a lot of what building an organizing brand personally and professionally is thinking about like content and relatability. So, like, what are the people in your community talking about, or what have they been talking about that more people should know about online? My biggest thing is always too long, didn't read. That is always my baseline for every post. You know, get to the point. Get to the point. Like, I know it's like really easy to get passionate and like, you know, go off, but like sometimes it's always just like, what is that one tweet for people to like really understand about what's going on? It's about content creation too. Like, what memes are you using? How do you do this? Like, there's a lot of stuff you can go on YouTube to be like, oh, how do I share video on Twitter? Things like that. Just like a lot of experimentation, but I think it is about really being personal and just being an impacted person, because it's about connecting your reality and the reality of people in your community to the bigger issue of what's going on. Like, if we are talking about like Black Lives Matter in the movement, like, then you are there to talk about like, how does that movement impact the people in your life every day? How does like access to housing impact people in your life every day? And it's also about like credibility. Like, you know, it's fun to like go on and like talk about things like that, but like, I personally would never share something that hasn't already been proven, because you also don't want to just be like a drama like a drama like local posting page where it's just like you're just sharing rumors and things like that. Because it's like, you know, we're all here to talk about things that are impacting our community. We're not here to make a bigger mess than on Facebook, you know. And like, sorry to the Facebook community, but that's not the place. But it's about like, you know, you can organize and you can really care about, you know, people having access to food. You can really care about abolishing ICE, but you can also be a barb. You can also like, you know, like to cook on the weekends. You can also be really into like fitness. And it's about relatability, because, you know, maybe there are other people at your gym. Maybe there are other people in your local community theater that like also want to talk about these things, but you posting both is really the avenue for them to feel comfortable to talk about things with you and ask you questions. Like, I can say, for example, like I work at United We Dream, and I used to go to CrossFit. Oh my God. But, you know, just talking about United We Dream on my socials, like someone from the gym was like, hey, actually I have DACA, so can you answer some questions about this? Or like, you know, there's a lot of sentiment about like people saying like, what isn't available. Sorry, I'm going to close my thought right now. What isn't available, and what's going on. Like, yeah, people know that there's a presidential election going on because that's what everyone's talking about. Like, it's so easy for people in our community to get caught up in like a Kanye running for president. But like, you know, are there any posts on their page talking about your local state races? Do they know the talk that's going on about Sucio Lucio? Do they know that, you know, Governor Abbott, this is not the first time he's fucked up when it comes to healthcare? Like, thinking about those things. And just saying like, you know, I don't see this, so I'm going to post it. But also never post, I don't see anyone posting about this, because that's just like not it.
I want to hop on something, again, Sadie said, because she is the like wealth of all knowledge, on relatability and like being personal in these counts. Because I think we're like terrible about this on the progressive side. That like we know what works well on the internet, right? Like it is influencers. It is creating a personal brand identity. And we don't necessarily do that with our progressive movement accounts. We're like very reluctant to do that. And it's how like the far right and like literal white supremacists have taken over YouTube. Like there are not progressive YouTube channels that like have built personalities around organizers and around these people that all of you have the capacity to do. You are like, if you can knock on a door and talk to a stranger, like I swear it is easier to talk to a reporter. It is easier to talk to a camera. Like all of those skills are the same thing, and we can build a personality on the internet around that. But we've like really let the right fill this huge void around that. And so I think that is one of the things that I'm really focused on. Like, how do we get people out there? We get people on social media talking, and we can do a better job. So it's not just like Toni Lauren or whatever the hell her name is. I can't ever remember. Like, she's so good at this, like truly very good at what she does. And like, we don't have the like comparable folks on our side, and we need to be building up the internet bench to take on, you know, the voter suppression, to take on the anti-immigrant sentiment that is online. Like, we can fight those things by building up a better bench online.
I actually want to add something because I think what you're saying about maybe like brands needing help trying to create that personal identity, I agree with that. And I think that's why I've been working with Texas Rising, and I think that's why they partner with influencers, because they already have that community built. And so they trust in you and what you're saying and the resources that you share with them. And so I think that's just one way that, you know, you can try and go about it, maybe partnering with people who already have communities that are exactly in that demographic that you're looking for. So like, especially for me, it's younger people who are of age to vote and they want to get involved and maybe they don't know how to. So I love that they've given me opportunities to share, Texas Rising has given me opportunities to share that with them and the resources and all the free things that are out there that can help people out. But yeah, I definitely agree with that, with what you were saying. And also I just want to add, Charlie, the reason I got registered to vote when I was 18 was actually through Move Texas, because one of your representatives, or I'm not sure what they're called, but they came to my university. And I used to go to UTD. I graduated in December, but it was through them when I first registered to vote, and I voted for the first time.
A success story. We'd love to see it.
We love to see it, truly. Okay, so for these next couple of questions, they're going to be just for Charlie and Sadie. So Giselle, you can take a break. You don't have to worry.
Okay.
Get some water. I'm just going to ask, how do you make civic engagement engaging? Like, how? And then also, like, what attracted you to comms in civic engagement? Like, what did you think you were getting into whenever you got into a job that involved, you know, spreading our message to, you know, Texans?
I can start on the second question about what got me into comms, because I think that'll lead into the first question. Mm-hmm. What got me into comms was like, I was tired of seeing articles and shit, like being in the movement and being on the ground organizing and seeing all these articles that just didn't really explain anything to people. So it's like my baseline is always like, well, how do I explain what's going on to someone who isn't really involved, like my sister? And then you read this article and it uses like all this unnecessary jargon. It sounds really like, oh, well, if you're super educated, you can vote. When at the end of the day, like, you know, a working class person who works, you know, 2 jobs understands what the fuck is going on. Like, you don't have to go to university to understand that they're not paying workers enough. You don't have to go to like these organizing conferences to understand that, like, you know, waiting in line to vote for 6 hours is not okay. And just seeing the way that the communication wasn't really fully going through in the way that I thought it should, I was like, you know what, let's just do it in like regular casual language. Like, you know, hey, this is going on, this guy sucks, this is why, let's go vote. Instead of like, for the last 20 years, we've compiled a list of whatever. And just seeing content like that was just like super cringe and cheesy. And I was like, dude, I could do this way better, way faster, let me do it on my personal. And then the place that I was working at, I was a field organizer. And the place that I was working at saw the stuff that I was doing on my personal and was like, hey, let's try that here. We'll pay you for it. And I was like, okay, great. So even just like being a young person transitioning into a digital job, it sounds like really scary and boring. But at the end of the day, like they want what you have. So like never forget that.
Yeah, I totally agree with Sadie. I think that like my number one job is demystification. Like the way that politics, all politics, but I think exceptionally like state legislatures and things like that, it's an insider's game. It's written about for the people who are already doing the thing. It is not written about for folks who are working a 9-to-5, not in Austin, and like might not know what's going on. It's not written for them. It's written using abbreviations and referring to people that you may never have heard of before, very rightly so. And so I think a lot of my work is taking a step back and being like, okay, you don't know that HB or SB9, which I think is the best example, which was the anti-voter suppression bill. Every article just referred to it as SB9. What the hell does that mean? No one knows that that's Senate Bill 9. What I can refer to that is a massive anti-voter bill being put, made. It is a low number because it is a high priority of the people in power. Like, we have to break that stuff down. And I can put that in a sentence and you know what that means when you have no idea what SB 9 is. And so for me, and that's like the most important part, that's like why I like this work, is because I feel like what I bring to the table is not necessarily a policy expertise in any one thing or whatever skill it may be, but I know how to explain things to like our community and to young people, and I can demystify and I can break things down. And to me, that's the most important thing I can be doing for a living, is like making sure that people feel like politics is accessible to them, especially at this moment.
Yeah, that's great. A lot of times it does seem like the language is a lot more geared and designed for the people who are making the decisions and not the people who are so much affected by these decisions. And it's like, a lot of people don't even know what any of this means, but, at the end of the day, they do feel it. Like, they feel it in their pockets, or they feel it in their taxes. Like, they feel it. They truly do, but they just don't know because it's talked about in a different way. Okay, so for our other question, which is also for Charlie and Sadie, this one's a lot of fun. How do you deal with trolls? It's really easy to feel like AOC, but without as much of the audience, with the amount of trolls and hate online. So how do you personally approach them?
I can start. I feel like Sadie probably has a better answer than I do, because I'm largely into ignoring people, but I also work in the voter registration space, which is like substantially less nasty than like immigration Twitter.
Yeah.
So I feel like Sadie probably has a better answer. But to me, there's a lot of it that I'm like, I'm not trying to, if you're not here to like advance my cause, like I'm not here to advance you.
Mm-hmm.
Like spreading, if you are a like popular account or a legislator and you are like spreading disinformation and things like that, like that's when I need to get in there and make sure that we are, especially around election issues where there's already so much disinformation, like we need to be doing that. Mm-hmm. But like, I've been an activist since high school, got death threats in high school, like done the whole damn thing. Like, there is not much you can say to me anymore that I find like that interesting or shocking. And so like, I don't have the time of day for that, to get wrapped up in that when I'm trying to like demystify politics to get more people involved. But I think from an organizational standpoint, Sadie probably has some better perspective.
Yeah, I definitely. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I don't know, like organizationally, we just got the biggest gift from Twitter. We got that option to like only people who can reply, and I was like, oh my god, I'm going to use this now. Still working Twitter, but it's coming. But I think, yeah, a lot of the times there's just, first things first, like Charlie had mentioned, if you can, your homework would be to like find out what misinformation and disinformation are and how that works online, because that is what the right wing has been excelling at, which is why so many people think like, you can have a special pill that that you don't know about for corona and like dumb shit like that, because it's super powerful. But it even happens on our side too. Like, once something goes viral about like a policy thing, like it's super great to uplift and share content from people's personal pages. But sometimes, like, it's better to share someone's personal story post than it is to share something on policy, because then sometimes people think that something means something when it doesn't. But you also don't want to be like that organization who like quote tweets, "Hey, this is wrong. Just don't share it." And I think about trolls, like, it's really easy to kind of figure out who was a bot or who was like a, just like a really angry, like, Republican boomer who has a Twitter. The mute button is great. The mute button, especially if you don't want people to know that you unfollowed them. Maybe it's like your family member you're just tired of it. Click that mute button. And then I would also say, like, I used to have this really cool gamer friend, the pioneers of trolling, and they always let me know, like, never block somebody, just troll somebody, because you'll never know when you get that one person who is willing to go the extra mile and make profile after profile to follow you, and then you get some like random anonymous profile that you fall for, and then they have access to all your stuff. So yeah, that's my biggest, just mute them, don't reply. But then if you do want to think about approaching trolls, think about it, like we had said earlier, strategically. Like, is the troll like the Republican group on campus? Is the troll like what's her name? The gun girl came to your campus,
Yeah.
That would make sense to, like, clap back, respond, do it in the way that you want. Don't be too messy, but definitely respond to those kinds of trolls. But if it's like some, like, John Smith 123000, like, you don't need to respond. So that, and then sometimes personally I get bored and I respond to bots, but that's just because I have it's not that I don't know they're a bot, it's that I just am bored. And, like, people are like, don't you know that's a bot? I'm like, girl, ask me. Don't ask me.
Yeah, I was like, there's a different thing between, like, me telling you what to do and me, like, glass of wine, like, Friday night, and, like, you know what, let's get into it. Let's get into it tonight. Which is not always my best, like, decision to do, but sometimes you need to get into it with some folks. My thing is, I think the biggest thing that I get into fights with folks on the internet is, like, young people don't vote, like, that kind of narrative stuff, that I'm like, I just absolutely will not stand for this nonsense. And I hardly would ever get into it with folks on the right. But if you are, like, a person in progressive politics who has power and you're coming to my Twitter feed to tell me how to, like, organize young people, like, we're going to have some words real quick. And I'm totally fine engaging with people in that way because I'm staying in my lane. I'm talking about what I know. I don't talk about or get in fights with people about stuff that I am not an expert in, but I do know why young people don't vote. And if you come into my feed and talk to me about that, like, I am going to come back. And I know if you go to Sadie's feed and start talking about DACA, like, there's going to be some words. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. So I think, like, also the just concept of, like, your profile, like, I don't talk about what I don't know. And I think that's, like, really important to, like, stay in your lane, not pick fights where you, like, might lose.
Definitely. And also, Ivania does have a question. So she said that she was having, she was saying, how do you deal with trolls who intervene with your professional life? We also had this trouble with a student recently here at A&M. She was, most people know her as the Cheesecake Girl. One time she was on Fox News because she didn't sell a cheesecake to a Trump supporter. And so the Trump supporter called Fox News crying. Anyways, they have been harassing her for probably like a year now, and she had to leave A&M because it's gotten so bad. People were following her in her vehicle, that she would have to get rides home, and, like, it got so bad that she was like, A&M's just not an option anymore. Like, I can't even go to the school anymore because it's not even a peaceful thing anymore. So, yeah, Cheesecake Girl is an incredible thing. She makes the best cheesecakes. It was in front of my house, literally 2 minutes away. I could walk to her business front and I could buy a cheesecake. But she's not based out of College Station anymore, so... Yeah, Diana. I think definitely trolling is, I think muting them is just the best way. I definitely agree, just because giving them so much energy and letting them know that you are giving them that kind of energy, I think they just feed off of that and they'll continue to come at you. So, like, just mute and leave, I guess. That's just the best that we can do at this point. But, let's see. This next question we have is going to be just for Giselle. So Sadie and Charlie up and take a break now. I'm just going to ask you. So we already kind of talked about it, about how you, like, started building your brand, but I just wanted to see, like, were there any hurdles that you faced, and were they specific to you, or was it just like a general struggle to create a following? Because I feel like social media now has just become like so overwhelmed with so many people, so it's just a lot.
Okay, that's a great question. I think partly it was okay. So let me just go back a little how I started. I started on YouTube, and at the time, I was creating content about. I had a quinceañera. If you guys don't know what a quinceañera is, it's basically just a big party when you turn 15, and I had this big party and I planned it all myself, like a bunch of do-it-yourself things. And so after I had my party, I made my channel and I started just making videos about how I did it on my own and how to save money and how to make your own centerpieces, how to make your own dances. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of quinceañera content for girls that are looking for some help. And so I think I got lucky because at that time it wasn't saturated, and that type of content there wasn't a lot of it. And a lot of girls just started requesting like videos on this. How did you do that? How did you do this? And I think with time, that's how my channel grew to begin with. But obviously now, oh my gosh, there's a ton of videos about that stuff now. But I think that's my personal experience with it. But I think the way to really stand out, and if you want to grow a brand and you want to, get people on board with you, I think one thing is just look around you, know what's going on, and maybe make some content based on just what's important right now. And because that's what people are talking about, that's what people are searching for. And then the other thing is just be consistent. So whatever it is you're posting, keep posting it. And yeah, those are my two biggest tips. But for me personally, I do think I got a little lucky because at the time, there wasn't a lot of that type of content that I was making, and people were looking for it and they wanted that. And so that's how I personally grew it. But now it's definitely really hard. Even I struggle with it growing my channel now because there's just so much of the same type of content. And but those are the two things. Just kind of know what's going on, know what's like popular, what's trending, any important stories or controversial things that you think you have something helpful to say about. I think that's what I would recommend.
Let's see. So we have like 2.5 minutes left. So I think one more thing we will just reiterate on. I think I saw a question earlier I wanted to come back to. Just like how do you balance like being personal and being professional? Let's see. Charlie, do you want to try hitting that one up?
Yeah, because it's such a fine line. I like definitely think about this. Also, my like personal brand is deeply just about voting, right? Mm-hmm. Like I was just wearing this casually today, right? Like this is just my like day-to-day shit. So like my brand and my like social media brand are like very connected, right? But I'm also like very interested in other things. And I think it's like, yeah, all the posters, listen, this is my real life up here. But I think it's like important for people to know that I'm like a real human person and I like other things and I'm like interested in other things. And so I like try to talk about that stuff. Also, some of the stuff that I'm like, I was really nervous to ever post that I was like on Grindr as like a gay male activist. Cause I was like, all these like white politicians are going to think I'm like promiscuous or like whatever. But like, posting about Grindr is like funny and like an inherent part of my like day to day. Some of us do activism on Grindr. Let's talk about that. But like that was like a really big deal for me to like try to like bring that personal aspect of my life. But also like that was me bringing my personal stuff to my activism as well. Like to talk about my gay dating life in gay clubs and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about on Grindr, there are a lot of individuals, especially who are just like talking about like free testing areas, or like if you don't even know, like this is where you can go. And also like there is resources down in the county. Like if you just go drive 5 minutes, go get tested, and if you're negative, they will give you free whatever you need for free, basically. So I mean, thankfully we've gotten to the point where we can use these resources like this, and it's taken a lot for people to try to use our voice like this, but thankfully we've all gotten to that point of just putting ourselves out there, and hope. I mean, we are getting a lot more people just in these communities, so that's always a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, that's it for our panel today. I just want to say thank you so much to Charlie, Sadie, and Giselle, and thank you so much to everybody else here. We're going to take a group feed real quick, group selfie, and then we'll be done, okay? It's going to be right here. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
What a system.
Literally.
Follow Sadie on Twitter.
On Twitter, Charlie. Follow the Move Twitter too. That was my favorite. Like, always has me cracking up.
The highest compliments. I have no idea what's going on. Just wait. We're waiting on 20 people to take selfies. Okay, everyone, pull your lives together.
Frankie, can I add something really quickly?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I know it's like completely separate kind of what I'm doing compared to what you guys are doing, but I just want to say at the end of the day, influencer to me, it's anyone who's like actually influencing people in a positive direction and giving them resources. And I honestly think all of you guys who are on this chat and you guys, the speakers as well, like those are the true influencers and the true meaning of the word influencer. So don't ever think because you don't have a ton of followers or a ton of people who watch you that you're not, you know, creating change and working towards something positive. So yeah, I just want to say you guys are the real influencers, people who actually use their platforms to promote positive things.
Love that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Giselle, and thank you all, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end the group feed. Y'all have a good day, okay?
Bye.
Bye.
I want my group fee.
Wait.
Where is it?
Well, I'm excited. That was our first presentation together, Charlie. So I'm very
Let's just do them together all the time. What do we want to do next? I'm going to ping you. I have another thing that I want you in on, so I'm going to ping you.
I'm so excited.
Okay, I got mine. All right, guys. See y'all. Thank y'all so much. They were great.
Send tweet.
Bye.
Thanks for hosting. Appreciate it.
Thanks.